The next video was taken by Caltrans. It shows water on the track of Highway 101.
We live in a world of unpredictable weather. Earthquakes across the Pacific can lead to tidal waves along our coast. Strong sundowner winds and high temperatures can create the perfect mix for a quick spreading wildfire. And a sunny morning can quickly turn into a clouded and rainy afternoon. Along the south coast, that rain may seem like the least of our worries, but these facts let us know otherwise. Over 75% of flood damage worldwide is caused by less than 1 foot of water. A mere 2 feet of water can sweep away a large vehicle, even a bus. Due to Santa Barbara's topography, there is a risk of flooding every rainy season. A major wildfire will greatly increase the risk of flooding in the affected area for several years after the fire. Facts like these catch people's attention, but more importantly, they should urge people into action. Although we can't prevent the rains from falling, we can do our best to prepare ourselves and our property for flooding. Knowing the dangers we face during any winter season, along with the increased risk now after multiple wildfires, increases the urgency of emergency preparation. With the city and county's many collaborations, along with extensive planning and residents taking steps to prepare now, we can get through the rainy season safely. After the Gap, T, and Hesesita fires, the hills above Goleta, Santa Barbara, and Montecito are at greater risk for flooding, landslides, and resident isolation.
Because of the burn areas that are above the city, they're all going to impact the low-lying areas of the city because of the watershed damages that have been done up there and the runoff and debris that can come off those mountains because there's nothing really holding them up. They're used to having plants and all types of vegetation up there that serve as ground cover that keep the hills from sliding, and so without that ground cover, any amount of rain on those hills is going to cause some type of slippage.
What we have over the last couple of years are a lot of fires that have developed in the watersheds in the county. What they generally result in is an increase in debris flow, sediment flow, and most importantly, water flow. A lot more water comes off a burned watershed than an unburned watershed. So as we enter into the winter, we always have the anticipation of the increased runoff from the rainfall, and then the actions that we're going to take to try to mitigate some of those impacts.
Those actions require planning and preparation, critical components in lessening the impacts of winter rains. The city and county are working together with multiple departments and agencies because in the end, rain does not follow lines on a map and flooding does not know jurisdictional boundaries. The water that flows down the hillside may start on county land, but is likely to end up on city residents' properties.
The city has bridges, they have roads, and of course all of the residents, for the most part downstream, are in the city. So we're working closely with the city to make sure that the work that we do integrates with the work that they do so that the entire plan is more effective. And we're in that right now. It's working out quite well. Even the hydromulching. The hydromulching is actually being cost shared by the city as well. And all of those treatments work together in order to make the response the best it can be in the winter.
Unless we can hold back the rain, the impacts are going to be there. What we can do is begin to prepare on how we respond. And right now the city is working with the County Office of Emergency Services, County Flood Control on creating a watershed flooding response plan. What happens is the National Weather Service will put out advisories. So there'll be different advisories for depending on the type of rain that we're getting. And so what we did was we put a plan together to see how we would respond. If we get an advisory that rain is coming, then we're going to start assigning certain staff to begin to look at the creeks and monitor the creeks.
Those advisories put the multi-jurisdictional flood plan into action.
Well, it begins with usually an outlook that's maybe 3 to 4 days in advance of a storm reaching us. So the word gets out, especially through the media. As we get closer to an event, the confidence level and what may happen goes up. So we'll issue maybe a winter storm watch. For the lower elevations, it might be a flash flood watch. And that's probably within 12 to 24 hours of the onset of an event. So it's a heads up, the potential is coming, and we should start to prepare.
These watches can quickly lead to a more insistent message to the community.
Then we get to a warning phase. It could be a matter of hours, even minutes for heavy downpour rain if there's a flash flood. And that is the imminent, it is happening now, or high confidence, and you should take action to save life and property.
Staying informed is extremely important for residents during a storm because the situation can change rapidly. The National Weather Service warnings go out through local radio and television stations and also online through WeatherWire. In order to be ready if and when that warning comes, many steps were taken well before the rainy season even began.
There's some water resources facilities located at the end of Tunnel Road that we're trying to protect this road so we can continue to have access. And we're doing a little bit more work further down in San Roque Creek to protect one of the bridges that has, it's got a double box culvert, so it's a small opening there, and we want to make sure that the water can pass through instead of accumulating debris in that location. The tank that's located here at the end of Tunnel Road is located at the end of a steep, narrow canyon, and so we're working with the NRCS to install a debris barrier there to protect that important facility. In Mission Creek, we're also planning to do some repair work on the Alomar Street Bridge, which has a scour issue that in a normal rain year, it wouldn't be elevated to the concern that we have now, but we want to be proactive here and ensure that if there is heavy rains and we have a lot of flow coming down there, that the structure will be protected.
Other areas within the city have also been working to lessen any impacts from the rain. The Parks and Recreation Department has been working at Stevens Park to make it ready. They removed a low-clearance pedestrian bridge to prevent debris blockage during water flow. A flexible debris barrier was also placed across San Roque Creek near Foothill Road to capture extra material as a backup to the county's debris basin further upstream. Another important city facility also has high risk during rainstorms, the Santa Barbara Airport. And like other city departments, they are doing what they can to prepare now.
Each winter we go through a flood prep, and it's been a little bit amplified, especially last winter because of the Gap Fire, and then again this winter because we know we're not out of the woods yet. Although the hydro mulch was successfully placed last summer, we still have concerns. Each year, the Santa Barbara County Flood Control District, they come out and they dredge the creeks here on the airport. Specifically, the biggest job they do is the one right behind me here. They spend quite a bit of time doing that since all the watersheds just across Hollister up here all end up in this creek. So they do a very good job for us. We go through internally in our maintenance staff. We make sure all of the drainage canals and drainage ditches are cleared out so we can get free flow of water through there. We inspect the storm drain inlets on the airfield to make sure they're clear and cleaned out, and we do our best to make sure sandbags are ready for tenants. And then again, internally, we'll have people on call when we expect the bad weather. In case there is something, we have people available to come back in, and then we'll make sure we just all have our rain kits and storm kits available in the trunks of our car so we can get out our rubber boots, our raincoats, and get to work.
The airport is just one example of the city of Santa Barbara working with the county to prepare for fast-moving water and rain-filled creeks.
We have the two phases that we prepare for in the winter, the pre-planning and the work that we do in advance of the winter. Those items include clearing of debris basins, stream clearing of stream corridors to open up for maximum flow of water, construction of debris racks to catch debris that might clog bridges and culverts downstream, and then just our general planning for the winter in terms of getting materials, contractors, and all the coordination with other agencies set up ahead of time so that when we enter into the winter, we have all of our work done, we have all of our coordination in place, and then as the storms come, then we're able to better respond.
Emergency response is also critical to public safety during any natural disaster. A fast response during heavy rains and flooding can often mean the difference between life and death. Firefighters from the Santa Barbara County Fire Department recently held a helicopter training to introduce all the firefighting agencies on the South Coast to working together with this important rescue resource. The training included Carpinteria Summerland, Montecito, and Santa Barbara City Fire Departments. Trainings like this are extremely important so that the crews from different agencies are able to work together efficiently.
One of the most important steps in emergency preparation and plan execution is information delivery and public evacuation.
When we have floods or fires, the police department's responsibility is to actually do the evacuation. It's to make the notification and to remove the people from the danger or the disaster area. As an example, the fire department's responsibility in a flood is rescue. The police department's responsibility is to go in there to get the people out.
In order to make that process as seamless as possible, the police department and other public safety personnel work together to test and prepare on a regular basis.
Our preparation for potential floods for this year really began last year, literally within days of the T fire ending. We as a city came together under the direction of the city administrator's office. We brought together the fire department, the police department to look at the evacuation areas. We brought in Public Works, the experts that we have the best we can with hydrologists to look at the soil so that we can ask those type of questions about the absorbency of the ground and what's the potential area.
We're also looking at where we put up our roadblocks. If we have to evacuate an area, the way that the city is situated and the way that the watersheds run, what we want to do is not begin to evacuate an area into another watershed area. So we have to look at that ahead of time of how that's going to move. And so every 2 weeks we've been meeting with Public Works, and I'll be working with the Red Cross to decide where are we going to put shelters, if we need to put shelters. And, you know, Public Works is also working with Caltrans and CHP because everybody needs to have a copy of this plan once it's done. We're going to have a copy of the county's plan.
One critical element in the evacuation process highlights the importance of the city and the county of Santa Barbara working together. The County Sheriff's Department's reverse 911 system is a key component of keeping residents notified in the case of an emergency.
That's why we bring in these planning efforts multiple jurisdictions. So it's a team cooperative effort where we're all working together to build these evacuation zones and plans so that we address everybody's needs and we're working together on them.
Similarly to wildfires, during a flood event, the goal is to only evacuate people when necessary.
During a flood event, if certain watersheds are affected and certain watersheds aren't affected, we're able to operate just in those areas that there's a threat to the public. And we're not going to be affecting those people that aren't directly impacted.
But ultimately, the safety of both the residents and the emergency workers is the #1 priority.
We're very aware of the difficulties, the stress, everything related to an evacuation. Many of our first responders, their families, those in emergency management, yourself, have had to be evacuated here in these recent fires. And this planning effort that we are doing, getting ready for the floods, is specifically to, I like to use the word surgically, to really target and pinpoint the areas affected to try to minimize the potential of evacuating people unnecessarily, while at the same time being able to identify the risk and get to evacuate people before the real hazard hits, and it's safer for them to evacuate and safer for first responders to assist them with the evacuation.
A vital step in the evacuation process is the use of the reverse 911 system. A secure database allows the Sheriff's Department to call groups of numbers in an emergency situation, be it a warning or mandatory evacuation notification. During a flood, this system is more important than ever since it enables the emergency responders to send a different message to residents in areas with different flood risks.
What Reverse 911 does for us is allows us to pre-plan these areas. Our database includes everything within Santa Barbara County, all residents with home lines in Santa Barbara County, all businesses in Santa Barbara County as well. This system is very vital. It's an important tool in the toolbox for the deputies. We will also supplement this with media announcements, boots on the ground, if you will, and people at roadblocks and things like this. So this is part of the tool. If you have a deputy knocking at your house for an evacuation, then you get the phone call 15 minutes later, that's just part of the process. Some people get it before, some people get it after, but we'll put all the resources we can on the incident to make sure everybody gets notified somehow.
But without one important step from residents, the system won't meet its full potential.
There is becoming a shift in the wireless numbers that's becoming more popular. When kids get their phone numbers when they're teenagers, they take them to college and they take them out to the real world and they don't bother getting a home phone number anymore. So as the population comes to age, we're going to find that usage of the plain telephone service migrating to wireless. So what we need to do is capture that information. Unfortunately, the phone company doesn't consolidate that information for us because it's hard to tell somebody where their phone is going to be. So it's up to the citizens to register their cell phones with us. That way we know what address to attach their phone number to.
It's also a good idea to register one cell phone number per household regardless of having a landline, since cordless phones don't work when the power goes out, and many people have cell phones. Registering numbers is simple and only takes a few minutes. Just visit the sbsheriff.org homepage and click on Contact Us. Most importantly, don't wait. Registering your number is not something you want to wait to do until the emergency strikes, because like all other emergency preparation, by then, it's too late. Because Reverse 911 is so important for the safety of residents, the city and county conducted a test of the system at the Santa Barbara Harbor. Being a particularly vulnerable environment, it's critical that the people who live, work, and recreate in the area can be notified immediately in case of an emergency. Over 1,500 phones were called during the test, which served as just one more way the city and county are trying to prepare before an emergency. It's planning and tests like this that helped the city earn an important distinction. Santa Barbara is now a storm-ready community.
Santa Barbara will be the first community in the county of Santa Barbara to be storm-ready. In Southern California, there is a limited number in the region.
You have to have 24-hour communication, you have to have a plan, you have to have public education outreach. There's a lot of things that you have to do to prepare before they will even designate you as a storm-ready city. There's a whole list that you have to do dependent on your population. And so we ended up having our validation tour where they come, they spend like almost a half a day looking at all of the places, our emergency operations center, the police department. They toured the waterfront area, they looked at the loudspeakers they had there, and when we were all done, we got our designation.
This designation highlights the importance the city places on being prepared for any emergency we may face.
The Storm Ready designation just shows how much the city is willing to put into public education and preparing the city and the citizens to be prepared.
Yet receiving a Storm Ready designation doesn't mean the work is done. Preparation and planning are not something that is only necessary for government agencies.
Even with the work the city and county have done to prepare for the winter rains, it's important to ask yourself, what can I do? Taking steps to prepare your property and your family is a critical link in the chain of success for emergency responders.
If they're prepared, then they begin to help us. Whenever I teach a class, I always ask them, who's the first responder? And they'll always say fire, public works, whatever. And I say, no, it could be your son, who'd be the first responder. Are they prepared to do whatever it is that needs to be done in your home before anyone gets there? So preparedness on the community's part, preparedness on the city's part, working together collaboratively is how we're going to save lives and protect property.
Simple steps can make a big difference during a disaster, And preparing for upcoming storms also helps prepare you for next year's fire season or even a sudden earthquake or tsunami. Have an emergency supply kit that includes a portable radio and plenty of water and non-perishable food. A video called Get Ready Santa Barbara on City TV's website shows you how to compile an emergency kit catered to your family's needs. Prepare your property by clearing debris and stocking up on sandbags now. The city will also offer unlimited free sandbags during flood watches issued by the National Weather Service. Bring your gloves and muscle to fill the sandbags at the city annex yard during those times. The county is now offering sandbags 24/7 at 3 different sites. Visit their Public Works website to find out exact locations.
If you do live on a steep slope and you know there's debris that could be mobilized in heavy rains, it would be a good idea to try to clear some of that out of there to prevent it from getting into the drainage system.
Another important step to take before the rains come is purchasing flood insurance for your home. Standard homeowners insurance policies do not cover flood loss. By contacting your insurance agent, you can find out more information about flood insurance, which is offered through the National Flood Insurance Program. Since there is generally a 30-day waiting period for the policies to become effective, the time to get insurance is now, not when a storm is in the forecast.
They need to prepare now. They can't put it off or keep waiting. They need to look at if they need to evacuate, how are they going to evacuate. Always have 2 ways in. Practice it. Practice evacuating. We're creatures of habit. We tend to go in one way and out another at the same time, all the time. But, every once in a while, take a different route. Know your neighborhood. Know who's in your neighborhood. Find out if there's anybody who'll need help, if they need to evacuate and have no help. Just be aware of your surroundings and be prepared. If anything, just be prepared to be able to leave or to shelter in place.
There's always a threat of flooding and debris flows in Santa Barbara just due to the steep slopes that we have here, and the soils, they have a poor ability to infiltrate water, and it's a very short distance from the foothills to the ocean, so things can happen pretty quickly here, and so it's important for the residents to be alert and to pay attention to the forecast. It can be beautiful day one day, and the next day a storm can come in off of the ocean, and there could be a debris flow in your backyard, or if you live downtown you could have inundation. So just to be very aware of the forecast this upcoming winter.
Preparation and awareness save lives. We're all busy every day, but taking time to prepare needs to be a top priority. Whether or not a flood or landslide happens this year, there is always a threat. If we spend the time now to prepare, it won't be a waste. We'll be ready for the next emergency, be it a wildfire, earthquake, or flood. In the end, it's always better to be safe than sorry.
It's important to recognize that after the fire, we've hit the 3 to 5 year window, we still have a flood threat that impacts the city of Santa Barbara that can't be discounted. We look at 1995 and 1998, there weren't any fires in the watershed during that time. And so it shows the potential is still there even without a fire. Potential is that much greater with a fire.
All of this information will be discussed at community meetings this fall. Representatives from multiple agencies will be able to answer questions and give additional resources as well. Visit the city's website, santabarbaraca.gov/OES, for disaster preparedness information and specific tips on flood preparation. A comprehensive brochure from the County of Santa Barbara can be picked up at their Public Works Department or viewed online at countyofsb.org/PWD/water. Rediscover your sense of Santa Barbara. Stearns Wharf, you're on to something. Years ago, early cave dwellers relied on natural fiber shoulder pouches to gather their food. Native Americans used baskets made of rushes or reeds to collect and carry acorns, berries, or fish. In the mid-19th century, gold miners loaded their saddlebags with precious metals and packed it onto their donkeys. Even 1930s American movie icons skipped down the yellow brick road with full baskets for the journey. In the 70s, we were all grooving to the latest funkadelic sounds with our out-of-sight bags. History has shown us that reusable is a better way to go. The decisions we make each day affect the world around us. Where's your bag?
Shouldn't that go into recycling?
Recycling? Recycling? Everybody knows the trash gets sorted. We don't need no stinking recycling.
Fact is, no trash gets sorted, friend. So if it goes in there, it just ends up at a landfill.
There's only one way to settle this. Draw.
Santa Barbara Recycles.
Yeah.